So welcome to the audience for this webinar on the topic of exploring the European sporting heritage. My name is Hugo Tozello. I'm working for Sport and Citizenship, and I'll be your host for this event. So today we will delve into the rich tapestry of European sporting heritage and what this cultural significance means for Europe. Just maybe a couple of words about the structure of Sport and Citizenship, which is organizing this webinar. So we are a think tank based in Brussels, founded in 2007, and we are the only think tank focused on the societal impact of sports. We worked and we analyze sports policy, and we contribute to shaping a little bit the public discourse at European and national level. We manage also European projects, and My Sporting Heritage is part of them. Today's session will go through the topic of European sporting heritage, and a couple of words to introduce the speaker of today. We have with us Dr. Niek Pas, senior lecturer in contemporary history at the University of Amsterdam. He will present the nautical history of the Netherlands and how this sporting tradition reflects the cultural history of the nation. Then we'll have an intervention from Bodil Børset, head of the Rindal Ski Museum, and she will take us into the fascinating world of ski making and this living heritage in Norway. And as a closing speaker, we'll have Lorraine Bertrand, the head of the audience and digital division at the National Sports Museum in Nice, in France, and she will present us the different missions of the museum and also the future objective of the My Sporting Heritage project. Perhaps, and at the end also, you'll have a Q&A session, so don't hesitate in the Q&A section to send us your question that we will be able to address in the last 5-10 minutes of this webinar. But without further ado, I will give the floor to Niek for the presentation of the nautical history of the Netherlands. Niek, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to participate in this webinar. And I'll present to you several slides with regard to the Netherlands water sports and heritage. Dutch sporting reveals a rich theme, as we probably all know. The Netherlands is a sporting nation, as evidenced by the 6th place in the medal table of the last Olympic Games in Paris. The 6th place for a tiny country, a place just behind France, but ahead of acquired sporting nations such as Great Britain and even Germany. And this is a truly remarkable result for a small country. Amidst a lot of disciplines, water sports are anchored in national heritage and history, just like disciplines as football, cycling, or field hockey. And as an overview, I'll present to you some forms of nautical heritage and the transformation of practices into objects of cultural heritage worthy of conservation or contemplation, for that matter, began in the 19th century and has gained momentum in recent decades through events, museums, websites, and also city marketing. Boating, taken in the broad sense of the term, is first and foremost anchored in history. The Republic of the United, no, I'm still at the first slide, sorry. Anchored in history, the Republic of the United Provinces in the 16th, 17th century, with its landmark merchant and war fleet, which constituted the classical national novel, Le Roman National of the Netherlands. Then culture constitutes another heritage field. We can think, for instance, of the image of the world-famous ghost ship, the Flying Dutchman, that has been portrayed in film and novels. And another aspect has to do with the presence of water and water sports in primary and secondary education, particularly through school swimming programs that are very much developed for decades. And the last introductory remark with regard to economics. The rich industrial past with shipyards and shipbuilding industry, marine and important commercial, and that's a very important tradition. And nowadays there are manufacturers and builders of luxury high-end yachts, which represent the new industrial flagship. So the big manufacturers of the past have all gone in recent decades, but instead there's these buildings of luxury yachts, and that has gained a lot of importance. As for boating as a multifaceted sporting practice, this essentially dates from the 19th century. And we can think of rowing, yachting, sailing, or for that matter, swimming. For example, the National Swimming Federation goes back as far as 1888. And all these practices over time have been transformed into an object of cultural heritage. And so they also exist as cultural heritage. And I will now propose to take a closer look at several practices. Please, the second slide. So firstly, since several years, 2020 to be exact, there exists a website that's dedicated to rowing, and it's simply called the Rowing Museum. And it's a website built around rooms to be regarded as museums, which tell us the history of this discipline, the associative life, its important events, personalities, and sporting champions. And the interested public will also find a typology of rowing boats and so on. So the Rowing Museum exists online. It's accessible through internet, but there's no such thing as a boating museum, a rowing museum in life. That's an interesting development. So it exists through a website. Next slide, please. When it comes to materialized traces and geography in cities throughout the landscape, in certain places, nautical sporting heritage is still visible. Well, perhaps we have to look very good at it sometimes, but traces are still visible. It's an amalgam of sites and bricks, because relatively few old structures that go back into history bear witness to the associative infrastructure, notably the yachting clubs dating from the 19th century. Of course, there is this marine infrastructure that goes back to the 16th and 17th century, but more recently, from the 19th century onwards, when it comes to associations, there are not many traces left. So, for instance, the former Olympic swimming pool that goes back to the 1928 Olympic Games in Amsterdam has been demolished. On the other hand, the headquarters of the first nautical company, yachting company, founded in 1846 in Rotterdam, is still present. And the building houses nowadays are occupied by a world museum. And it's relatively scarce that this museum is still among us when one considers that Rotterdam has been destroyed in the Second World War. Another example is a rowing course in Amsterdam. It's called the Bosbaan. Bos means wood, and baan is course. And this one has been built in the 1930s in the midst of the economic crisis as part of a job creation project that were at that time throughout Europe very common. And this Bosbaan, this rowing course, is still in use. And over the decades, it has been expanded and modernized and hosts trainings and competitions. So it's still in use, and it's very well known throughout the country. The next slide, please. Another form of heritage is visible throughout courses, competitions, sports events. And a very fine example is the varsity. And the varsity is a Dutch copy of the famous boat race in England between the teams from Oxford and Cambridge. That's known throughout the world. And the varsity has been created in 1878. It's a rowing regatta. And every year in the Netherlands, the competition between 3 student societies from Amsterdam, Leiden, and Utrecht, 3 classic universities, meet and organize this competition. And the interesting thing about it is that, as in the English, as for the English example, it's a mix of sport and folklore, and is part of student heritage as well. And rowing is a major discipline in the Netherlands, and no less than 7 out of 34 medals won at the Paris 24 Olympic Games. So it's still a big discipline. It's a sporting tradition that has, as mentioned, its origins in the student environment, in the student world, in the 19th century. And the oldest nautical rowing club is Njord from Leiden, and it dates from 1874. And nowadays, the Netherlands have some 125 rowing clubs with more than 45,000 members. So it's quite an important discipline, nautic discipline. Next slide, please. Unlike rowing, that is present almost everywhere across the Dutch territory, certain disciplines have rather regional roots. So a regional form of heritage, sporting heritage. A typical example is the so-called Skutjesielen in the province of Friesland, and that's a region in the north of the country. And originally, skutjes were commercial boats which, during winter period, in the past, the season of low trade, these skutjes organized competitions. And at the beginning of the 20th century, these competitions that were organized in the north were centralized in a championship every year in this particular region in Friesland, with around 10 local competitions, and together they formed this regional competition, this regional championship. In 1998, so relatively short time passed, a museum dedicated to this practice and history opened its doors in Urnewald. That's a small village in the north. And it's a very fine example of musealization of regional sport and folkloric practices, because in this museum we find the history of this sport as well as practical information about these boats, about the competition nowadays, and how to attend these races. But and that has to be mentioned, is a typical example of regional folklore. So it's very well known in the north, but not nationally watched. Next slide, please. Another form of sports heritage is visible through commemorations. And in recent decades, this heritage phenomenon has taken on a new importance. Of fairly recent date, is a commemorative one relating to the Second World War. And since 2005, so only 20 years ago, the commemoration has been organized on May the 4th. It's May the 4th in the Netherlands is the day the country celebrates or mourns the death of the Second World War, followed by the celebrations of the liberation on May the 5th. So the May 4th and May 5th are two important dates. So and since 2005, a commemoration has been organized by the National Sports Commemoration Committee, Nationaal Sportherdenkingscomité, and it organizes a ceremony which takes place on a specific square, the square of the Olympic Stadium in Amsterdam, in front of the statue of Prometheus, symbol of will, symbol of human revolt. And at the center of the commemoration this year was the nautical discipline, and in particular, swimming. Was commemorized the former Amsterdam Club Association, Friends of Water, Watervrienden, which had lost during the Second World War more than 200 members, all of them Jews, during the German occupation. Lastly, last slide, please. A final example of nautical heritage, which is associated with European culture and history as well, is of course the colonial space. And we often tend to forget this particular theme, but it's historically and culturally very much connected to heritage, European heritage overseas. Water sports, for instance, were very much developed in the Dutch East Indies, modern-day Indonesia. And near the capital Batavia, nowadays Jakarta, could we find the headquarters of the so-called Batavian Royal Yacht Club, a sporting association for the colonial elite. This Batavian Royal Yacht Club has since disappeared. So the image you see here, the photo you see here, no longer exists. So the building no longer exists. It has become part of the harbor of Jakarta, the modern harbor of Jakarta nowadays. And I think this topic, as well as the other ones I just mentioned, deserve further study, and it deserves further comparative studies across the former colonial empires, because these kinds of royal yachting associations also existed in British India or in France, North Africa. And they are still not very much studied. So the Dutch nautical sports heritage bears witness to an extremely rich diversity through disciplines, material cultures, commemorations, and museums, or even competitions nowadays, and folkloristic events. And several geographical spheres on a national, regional, local, and also international level can be distinguished without forgetting the former colonial sphere, which also relates, as I explained, to European history. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Niek. That was indeed very interesting and exhaustive as a presentation of the nautical history of the Netherlands. As just a quick reminder for the audience, if you happen to have any questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and they will be addressed at the end of the three talks. Now I will give the floor to Bodil Børset. As I said before, she's the head of the Rindal Ski Museum, and she will guide us through the history of ski making and sport as a living heritage in Norway. So Bodil, I'll give you the floor, and I will just change the slide.
Thank you, Hugo. You could actually just switch to the second slide. Located in the snow-rich region of Trøndelag in the middle of Norway, Rindal Ski Museum is the region's national museum for ski and ski-making history. Founded in 2014, the museum highlights the country's deep connection to skiing and ski-making and the evolution of ski sport. Rindal Ski Museum preserves both local and national heritage, also international, from handcrafted wooden skis to industrial innovation. The museum highlights Rindal's 4 ski factories. This is a village of 2,000 inhabitants, and it showcases an extensive collection of historical skis, equipment, and memorabilia from athletes and ski makers who shaped modern skiing. In addition to collections, exhibition, and lectures, usually made by museums, we have activities like the Wooden Ski Festival, ski making workshops, and ski rentals. So our ski museum provides hands-on or maybe feet-on skis experiences in ski making and allows visitors to engage in crafting and using wooden skis, bringing the Norwegian ski culture to life. The museum was nominated for the National Building Award in 2015 and the European Museum of the Year Award in 2017. So, located in the middle of the center of the village, easily accessible, the site comprises 15 historical buildings, and it's close to skiing and walking trails, offering both a physical and cultural journey into Norway's skiing past. The museum fosters connections with the local community through schools, ski clubs, craftsmen, and volunteers. Now you can change. I have to take you through a brief history of Norwegian skiing history. Historically, skiing and ski making have been essential in rural Norway. We have so much snow, so used by Norwegian and Sami people for hunting, reindeer herding, transport, postal services, and lumbering. The oldest skis discovered in Norway date back to 3,000 years before Christ, and the saga literature recounts skiing in Norse times, and a good Viking was also, of course, a good skier. Now you can change. But then it's the development of the sports. More organized skiing competitions, because we always loved to compete. The more organized skiing competitions in Norway were closely tied to military training in the 1600s and 1700s, because we were constantly in, you have to change this back. Okay. Because we were constantly in war with the Swedes, etc. So we had permanent regional military ski battalions from 1732. And then to encourage the soldiers to become good skiers, military authorities introduced competitions. So during the conflicts with the Swedes, ski battalions were deployed. However, after the union with Sweden in 1814, military ski companies were disbanded, and leading to a quiet period for organized competitive ski sports in Norway. But there were ski races during this period too. The first known civilian ski competitions in Norway, and probably also in an international context, were held in Tromsø in 1843. Now, the year 1861 is important. It represents a shift and speeds up the development of the sport in Norway. For this year, the Central Association for the Promotion of Physical Exercise and the Use of Weapons was established to promote physical education, sports, and military preparedness. At the same year, the world's oldest ski club was founded in Norway. Each year, the Central Association awarded a significant amount of prizes for shooting, skiing, and ski jumping competitions. Skiing was introduced into school gymnastics, and there was a strong advocacy for skiing for both girls and boys, with the Trøndelag and the Mid-Norway region leading the way. From 1862, ski competitions were held all over Norway, prompting a need for more good skis and skilled ski makers. Skiing was viewed as a way to develop and strengthen the body, not merely as a pastime. Now you can change the image. In 1883, Rindal Shooting Club was established with 29 members and 4 rifles and joined the Central Association, leading to the formation of various youth and sports clubs, such as the Youth and Sports Club Fram, meaning forward in English, founded in January 1893, who organized several official ski races with awards in 1893 and 1894. From 1908, the Club Fram organized annual ski races in Rindal. The village fostered great skiers from the beginning of the 1900s. The activity was paused during the First World War, but let's say that the 1920s and 30s is often called that the first and golden era of ski sports in Rindal. And one of these skiers you can see here is Sigurd Røen, who was the first official world champion in the official world championship in Chamonix in 1937. You can change slide. And in our collections, we have the complete awards of Sigurd Røen exposed from the 1930s, also telling the story about European politics. We can see with the special emblematic of the pre-Nazi German area. Okay, now you can go back. I will not say much more about this. We also have the last medal won on wooden skis by Magne Myrmo in Falun 1974. So we have the first world champion and the last world champion on wooden skis. Okay, next slide. The second golden age of the ski sport in Rindal after the Second World War is often associated with the 1950s and 60s. Even Lønsam, the man on the picture with the ski, holding the skis, he was himself a good skier during the first golden era in the 1930s, and he went to the local ski craftsman Holtley ski factory to learn how to make skis himself. So after World War II, he started up his own skiing factory, Lønsam Ski Factory, in 1946. This developed pretty fast, and by the 1960s, it was developed to one of the biggest ski factories in Norway. Lønsam racing skis were trusted by over 80% of the top Norwegian ski elite, and many world and Olympic championships being won on Lønsam skis by legends such as Harald Grønningen, Oddvar Brå, Magne Myrmo, made histories of skis crafted in Rindal. And Myrmo was the last World Skis Championship competitor, winning gold medal in Falun 1974. A very disputed competition because it was the big debates about the issue of transition from wooden skis to fiberglass skis. Lønsam Ski Factory managed an impressive industrial restructuring process and managed in a business cooperation with Blizzard Ski Factory in Austria to develop the Lønsam Blizzard fiberglass ski and turned the production from wooden skis to glass fiber skis pretty fast. First medals being won already the fall same year. Next image. Even Lønsam had a smart marketing strategy. All the champions who won races in different championships on Lønsam skis were told to sign their skis and send them back to Even Lønsam. So he made his own private collection with all the Olympics and World Championship skis from all the best skiers in Norway. And this is one of the parts of our collections today. Yeah, I won't tell more about that. Next picture. The growth of ski sports in the 1900s necessitated more industrial production and the establishment of ski factories in Norway. Rystad's ski factory in Fåberg was founded already in 1872 and was Norway's first and oldest ski factory. It closed in 1980, and we are lucky to have all the machinery from this ski factory in our collections now. And I'm actually sitting amongst the machinery now in this room. Ski making in Rindal has been a vital part of the local economy for decades, positioning the area as the center of ski making in Norway. 4 ski factories in this small village with 2,000 inhabitants contributed significantly to the local economy. Founded by Ole Haltli in 1918, Rindal Ski Factory produced skis on demand alongside the windows, doors, and coffins for funerals, eventually selling skis under the brand name Rindal Ski. And Haltli patented the laminating of the skis in the 1930s, and the factory operated until 1978. Other key factories included Trollheimen Ski Factory, Troll Ski Factory, and Landsheim Ski Factory. In the 1970s and 80s, Rindal has had as many as 3 factories in operation at the same time, and a total production of around 100,000 pairs of skis a year, a lot also for the export market, solidifying Rindal's reputation as a hub for ski innovation. During the 1960s, as a curiosity, Landsheim's ski model Let Ski, produced with balsa wood, gained international fame and earned the nickname the Stradivarius of ski sports. Next image. And at the ski museum, we have wooden skis from most of the Norwegian wooden ski factories, in addition to the Rindal ski factories. Next image. This is from Landsheim Ski Factory, just an image. And then I will take you to some more images. And these are the last wooden skis and the first fiberglass skis to win world championships produced from Landsheim Ski Factory. The Landsheim Blizzard ski in blue and orange to the right. Okay, now I've finished my formal presentation. I will just show some images about and tell you a little bit of how we work with our cultural heritage. We actively preserve and pass on the ski making tradition by events such as the annual Wooden Ski Festival. We have Wooden Ski Days where we do a tour around the local schools with 50 pairs of wooden skis and do activities with the children. And we teach children on how to make and preserve wooden skis. It's a collaboration with the Norwegian Ski and Ski Maker Association. We have workshops and exhibitions to encourage hands-on participation, allowing visitors to experience ski making firsthand. We have ski rental, provide opportunities to test both handmade wooden skis and those fabric-produced skis from Landsheim's factory. So I have some images. I just show you a little bit some flashes. This is from the summer where we do summer school with children to prepare the skis for next year. And then we have some more images. Next. This is Thomas Aslaksby. He's a ski maker today. He's coming here for the Wooden Ski Festival to demonstrate how we make skis. Okay, next. Here you see the box where they boil the tip of the skis to shape them to get the nice curve. And every summer we have to do it again because the ski flatten out during the winter when it gets wet. So the children learn how to make the tip again. Then you can change. Next image. These are the 50 pairs of wooden skis made from Norwegian wooden ski makers. So they let them continue the tradition of ski making. At the same time, we can use them in education programs. Next. This is us in action with a school. They are going out for a trip, so they're learning about the ski making and also trying out how to walk on wooden skis. Okay, that was my alarm. Next. This is, I have to tell you, on the left is Thomas Aslaksby, the ski maker, and the girl to the left is Matilda. She is 10 years old, and she just told us that she wanted to be a ski maker when she grew up. And those are kids in action. Okay, next. Next. Here you can see the children doing the same operation as the traditional ski maker to make the tip of the skis. Next. And it's really hard work, so you have to put them in this shape afterward when they're moist and soft. Next. And this is the poster for a wooden ski festival. Okay, next. We have ski rental, and we have a race with torches in the evening where people can get in, borrow skis and costumes. And the guy on the bottom is Johan Landsam. He's part of our friendship association now. He's retired from Landsam Ski Factory because he was a manager. And now he's helping us with practical things. Okay, next. This is from the ski festival. Kids racing in skis and grown-ups and having a good time. Next. Also some images from the festival. This is Ilva and her mom. They're renting skis and going on a torch race. Yes, next. And of course we have ski parking in Rindal. Okay, next. These were some images from some of the activities that we do at our museum. It gives us a lot, and it also learns how to be better in doing good experiences and learning the cultural heritage to children. So if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bodil. That was, as the previous presentation, very exhaustive and extremely interesting to learn more about this ski making history and how the future generation also are taught this heritage. Thank you very much. I'm going to give the floor to Lorraine Bertrand. As I said, she's the head of the Audience and Digital Division in France at the National Sports Museum in Nice. And she will guide us through the different missions of the museum and what are the future objectives of the My Sporting Heritage project. Lorraine, the floor is yours.
Okay. The National Sports Museum is in Nice in France, at the heart of the Alliance Riviera Stadium. More than 45,000 objects and 400,000 documents, equipment, clothing, trophies, mascots, posters, painting, films, photos, archives, forming one of the largest collections in the world, are now presented, placed in the heart of the showcase designed by Jean-Michel Wilmot. Dresses and legendary cycles, balls and rackets, vintage skis, tracksuits and costumes worn by the most famous athletes tell the story of sport from ancient times to present day. With its immersive museography, the National Sports Museum in France brings to life and relives as close as possible to the champions, the rich moments of emotion that have marked our memories. Next slide, please. Yes, raise photos of the museum. Next slide, please. The National Museum's Sport Museum missions is to implement educational initiatives on sports for all. It welcomes over 100,000 visitors, including more than 30,000 school children in 1 year. Its teams also produce themed educational kits. Next slide, please. Go. And the themes of these educational games are the environment, are on women. Next slide, please. To return to the European My Sporting Heritage project, there is next steps, a publication on European sporting heritage and the issues involved in promoting it, produced by our partner Sport and Citizenships. A virtual exhibition on Europe's sporting heritage produced by our partner Michael Couture, and educational culture digital sports games on Europe's sporting heritage, always produced by our partner Adiona. Next slide. It's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lauren. So, as we've seen that this initiative, that's really the idea is really to celebrate Europe's sporting history and making it also accessible to the wider public. There will be like workshop. We are also in the process of developing digital tools, innovative resources with, as you said, the partner Radiona. And the idea is to inspire also a new generation to embrace a bit the value and the stories that are linked to the sporting tradition. So we've now come to the end of the various presentation that we had scheduled for today. Right now we have 2 questions in the chat. I'm also turning to the rest of the audience. If you had some question that pops up during the different talks, feel free to send them in the Q&A section. The 2 questions that we have at the moment are directed to you, Bodil, in relation to what you mentioned. The first one was, and perhaps you maybe answered it during your talk, but the idea is to, what are the museum current initiatives to attract new audience, and particularly younger generation, as we've seen, to keep this Norwegian ski culture alive? So that's the first question. And the second one is perhaps looking forward and looking in the future. How do you see this future of preserving and passing on the tradition of wooden ski making, and especially with the rapid evolution of modern materials? So one's perhaps directed to keeping the younger audience engaged, and also what's the future of preserving this European, this sporting heritage?
Okay, thank you for all the good questions. I think maybe I answered the first question on the last slides, how we work. We have a cooperation with, there is a World Ski Championship now in February in Trondheim, which is the next town here. We cooperate with the championship, and during that period we will have extended opening hours, and also the festival is in the beginning of that period. So that will be some of our new audience. And also, of course, to these educational programs and activities, festivals, and so on. I think that's important. How to keep the tradition alive? We cooperate with the Norwegian Ski Making Association. They have these ski educational programs now rolled out. We are kind of a pilot, and then they're rolling out in other parts of Norway also now. So it's really nice. I think wooden skis are a sustainable way of skiing. It's if you have wooden skis, you have skis for life if you take good care of them. That's what we teach the kids also. And today, with all the materiality and the climate changes, I think that might be a focus that would be more relevant for a younger generation. But I feel a shift of audience because we always have the nostalgics. They come here to look at the old medals and trophies and stories of the old champions in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. And they will always come back as long as they are in good health and so on. But we always have to ask ourselves, what about the next generation? What are their way of entrance to this heritage? And I think putting the skis on the feet is one of the best ways of reaching out to them. We also have we are so centrally located. The school and kindergarten are our neighbors, so they use the museum a lot every day. There was snow. It was snowing last week, so I have children outdoor here now today, sloping and skiing outside. Yeah, as long as we have ski and we have snow in Europe, and we are able to be skiing, so I think we will. I hope we will be relevant for younger generations.
Thank you, Bodil. And yes, as you said, it's also dependent on the climate and the current change that we can see in our environment. And we do have actually in Sport and Citizenship one project specifically tackling the issue of climate change and the impact on the ocean. Perhaps just there is potentially there is a third question that just arrived. Perhaps regarding the first talk that we have from Niek. How do you see the role of sports museum in promoting local and regional sporting heritage? And perhaps if you have an idea, Niek, on what are the challenges do you face in ensuring their relevance for future generation? If that's something that rings a bell for you that you want to touch upon, that was one question that was mentioned in the chat. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. It's a fascinating one. As I mentioned, sporting culture, heritage, traces are visible everywhere. But one of the characteristics of this culture is also that there doesn't exist a national sporting museum, for instance. There was one in the past, some 20 years ago, but that didn't materialize and it has disappeared since. There has been an attempt to open and maintaining, especially, and maintaining a museum in the former Olympic Stadium in Amsterdam. But that initiative also had to close down the museum. So that apparently didn't work, did not attract that many people, did not sufficiently reach out to an audience. So that's I suppose one part of the answer. And the other one, when it comes to local regional initiatives, it seems that, and that was the example I gave for the North, for the Scottish Sealand, it seems that when initiatives are regionally rooted, they gain an audience. So it has to be specific. That's what in a way, what I recognize in Bodil Børset's presentation. It is there's this regional aspect with for Norway, this national translation. But I suppose that's a part of the answer. If there's if an initiative is successful or not. And on the other hand, it's an observation, not an answer, but more or less an observation. It seems to me that in a way, sports nowadays is everywhere around us, in us. We deal with it on a daily basis, news and competitions, and it's very much present. And in that perspective, it's almost a banal cultural expression because it's so obvious. So apparently, there is a gap between this omnipresence of sports and trying to materialize it, and to also materialize its heritage, its cultural heritage, in museums and so on. Yeah.
I have one question directed to Lorraine on the what you mentioned in terms of the theme covered in the educational kit. And so the question is, if you could share more details about the theme covered in this educational team, and if and how they will reflect maybe the role of women in sports. Is it something that came during the reflection of the production of this educational team, or maybe now, as we were talking about the different objective of the project, that's maybe something which hasn't been developed yet?
Est-ce que Hugo, ça te dérange d'un petit peu traduire ce que je vais dire ou...
Let's go, allons-y.
Ok. Donc, the National Sport Museum realize different kits, educative kits, and donc nous avons déjà réalisé plusieurs kits sur le développement durable.
Okay, so you've done different kits, specifically on sustainable development, for example.
For example, sur l'art et le sport.
Okay, art in sport.
Et sur les femmes dans le sport en France et au niveau européen. Sur le rôle des femmes dans le sport, alors c'est pas le rôle des femmes dans le sport. L'idée des kits pédagogiques, c'est de valoriser ou de faire connaître pour créer des rôles modèles des sportives dans l'histoire du sport, des sportives.
Okay.
Donc,
so you have also a kit on women in sports at the national and the European level, and the idea is perhaps also to create and to propose, because maybe we don't have this type of example, to have role models for kids to understand that these person were also beacons, they were icons, and they can use this example. That's the example presented in the kit.
Et ces sportives que l'on présente dans ces kits pédagogiques sous la forme de jeux permettent d'aborder des questions de société sur la place des femmes dans le sport.
Okay, and so it's also presented as a game. I suppose maybe for kids, for them it's easier to understand, and that so they can have an idea of these women, what were their place in the sports history.
Et donc,
Ouais.
ça va être le même principe dans les jeux pédagogiques proposés dans le projet My Sporting Heritage, c'est d'utiliser le jeu pour faire découvrir le patrimoine sportif européen.
And so in my sporting heritage, that will be the same, actually using this educative and playful way of presenting the facts to use that as an innovative and immersive experience for the audience to understand a bit more what connections we can do at the European level, and is there a European sporting heritage? So that will be also the theme that will be reflected in the exhibition. I'm looking at alors, there is a good question that have been written in the chat. So there is a question about parasport, and are we going to touch upon parasport in this topic? That's something which, for the moment, at the consortium level, it's still, let's say, the development of this specific exhibition. Stop me if I'm wrong, Lorraine, but parasport, are they included in our reflection? Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yes, so there will be mentioned. So thank you for answering that, because I wasn't extremely certain on that. So thank you very much. So yeah, there will be a section delving with a parasport. Perfect. Superb. So I think we've come to the end of the different questions that we had. Perfect. So right now, if there is no question anymore to answer, we'll come to the end of this webinar. I think on my side, I will just thank the different speakers, Niek, Bodil, and Lorraine, for your different presentation, your intervention. That was very insightful. We learned a lot about European sporting history and this different cultural heritage. If you want to learn more about what the Sporting Heritage Project is doing, you have the link, and so it's mysportingheritage.eu. You can have a look on there, and also follow us on the social media. You have the name of the different partner just on this slide, so feel free to have a look on the different activities. And yeah, thank you also to the audience for being there and sending us your question. It was also really insightful to have your comments. And yes, I think the rest of the panel, and I think we can close this webinar. Thank you very much.